All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's Friday, June the 5th. It's a fantastic, beautiful morning as always. The sun is shining, and that's what we like. We love to see the sun shining. All right. So, we got a quick show here today. Not a lot. Um, Not a whole lot to discuss, but it's some good stuff. I'm gonna ask some interesting questions. So, yeah, it'll be a nice and quick show today, and it's gonna be a fantastic time. So I got about three stories here that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to give you some coverage on it, some facts, and then I'll tell you some interesting things about these stories that I found interesting. And we're also going to take a look at play a bit of devil's advocate on all of these stories. So as usual, yeah. So just then, yeah, we're gonna just have a good time here. So first off, we have a federal judge just ordered the Trump's name off the Kennedy Center. So here are the facts. So the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts was designated by Congress as a living memorial to President John F. Kennedy following his assassination. And in December, Trump's hand-picked board actually voted to rename the institution, quote, the Donald J. Trump and the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts. And Trump had earlier installed loyalists on the board after gutting its existing membership. But the U.S. District Judge Christopher Cooper ruled that the board overstepped its authority, and he actually wrote, quote, Congress gave the Kennedy Center its name, and only Congress can change it, end quote. And that's from Spectrum Local News. So following the ruling, the Kennedy Center's general counsel sent a memo, and it was directing staff to immediately remove Trump's name from email signatures, letterhead, and other documents, and to replace it with the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. So all signage, brochures, and website pages must be changed by June the 12th, which is in like 7 days. That's like in a week. So following this ruling, the Kennedy Center General Counsel sent a memo directing staff, and I think I already read that part. Okay, yeah. So the Kennedy Center's vice president of public relations said the institution was complying with the court's order while evaluating all legal options. The judge also weighed in on a planned 2-year closure of the center starting July 4th. And the ruling didn't prohibit closure outright, but it required the board to reconsider a decision in a prudent manner. And this name, the Donald J. Trump's and John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, was actually installed on the building back in December. And yeah, now that get that taken off by June the 12th. So this ruling isn't really about Trump specifically. It's more about who has the authority to name things. So Congress created the Kennedy Center. Congress named it. And a board of appointed loyalists, they don't get to override that, right? The judge's logic is actually pretty simple. This is what checks and balances look like when they're at work. A lawsuit was filed, and a court heard it, and a ruling came down. And now the institution is going to comply with it. And that's the system doing its job, as it should. The Kennedy Center as a JFK memorial has a specific meaning. It was created in grief after an assassination as a permanent tribute. That context is going to matter when you're talking about someone who's appending their own name onto it, or someone else's name onto it, for that matter. And the really interesting question going forward is, quote, so the board is, quote, evaluating all legal options, right, quote unquote. If this gets appealed, watch what argument they're going to make, all right, because the judge's ruling is going to be very clean on the statutory question. And on the other side of this argument, however, the board's argument was that adding Trump's name honored the president during the country's 250th anniversary, the same framing as the $250 bill story. And there's at least an internal consistency to the administration's position across these moves. And supporters would actually argue that a president who overhauled and revitalized the institution deserves recognition, and that the lawsuit was a partisan effort to deny that. And the closure question is separated and unresolved. The center does need renovation. and the judge acknowledged the closure itself isn't automatically barred. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys think the name on a building matters or if it's just a distraction on bigger issues. And basically, in closing, Congress named it and a judge upheld it, and that name comes down on June 12th. Sometimes the story is just that simple, right? Okay, that covers that first story right there. Next up, we have another very interesting story. So Karen Reed won, and now she's suing the people that came after her. So Karen Reed was acquitted. The case is closed. Except now she's suing the police departments that investigated her, and what's in that lawsuit is actually a story about what happens when people with badges don't have anyone watching them. So here's some facts. Karen Reed was prosecuted for the murder of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, who was found dead outside of a colleague's home. She maintained that she was being framed, and after a mistrial of it in a second trial, she was actually acquitted last year. Reed filed a civil lawsuit on Thursday in Bristol County in the Superior Court against the Massachusetts State Police and the town of Canton, alleging the investigation was conducted by biased and corrupted officers who targeted her while shielding others from scrutiny. So this lawsuit specifically names two officers, former state police trooper Michael Proctor and the lead investigator. No, he is the lead investigator. And the former Canton Police Sergeant Sean Good, who responded to the crime scene. The Massachusetts State Police Trial Board actually found Proctor guilty of sending crude and defamatory texts about Reed while leading the investigation. He was fired, and Good resigned earlier this week. So the lawsuit alleges the text messages produced in evidence are racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, and homophobic. Reed's lawyer said that the days of hiding behind badges and promotions while peddling vile bigotry are over. And Massachusetts State Police Superintendent Colonel Jeffrey Noble called the messages racist, sexist, and abhorrent. And they said they do not represent the department's values. So this criminal case is over, and Karen Reed won. She won. This lawsuit is about something different. Whether the institutions that employed these officers bear responsibility for what those officers did, that's a legitimate and important question, regardless of where you stood on the underlying case. The lead investigator sending these messages while actively leading the investigation isn't just a personal failing. It's almost an argument that the investigation itself was poisoned from the inside. And a jury actually already agreed enough to acquit. So now a civil court gets to examine the institution. The MSP superintendent's response, he was condemning the messages, and he was supporting Proctor's firing, and that's the right institutional response. But we fired him, and we're not liable for what he did are two different claims. And this lawsuit is about the second one. This is also a story about what it takes to even get to this point. Reed spent 3.5 years and 2 trials to get here, and most people don't have the resources or the platform to fight back the way she did. That asymmetry is going to be important, and that asymmetry matters. Now, if you want to take a look on the other side of this argument and on the other side of this whole situation here, Proctor's lawyer stated a position that is his personal texts had, quote, no bearing whatsoever on the investigation. And the argument that even a biased investigator can conduct a valid investigation, and that's going to be contested in court. So the town of Canton said its police department has made significant strides forward over the past 2 years, and institutional reform is a real defense, even if it doesn't resolve the liability question. So civil suits after acquittals are pretty common. Not every lawsuit represents institutional rot, and a court will have to weigh in the evidence very carefully. So if an officer's private messages show bias, does that automatically taint the investigation that they led, and what standards should courts use? So in closing, she won the criminal case, and now she wants to know who's accountable for what it cost for her to win it. And that was a very interesting story, I believe. Cases like these happen all the time, and sometimes it's really interesting to see how these civil suits play out. Okay. And this is our last little bit for today. And this one is something very interesting to me. something I find very interesting personally, and this is about Anthropic and Claude. Well, it's not necessarily about Claude, but it's something about what Anthropic said. So the company Anthropic that makes the AI Claude, um, and we actually wrote we got a report out on this morning on our Instagram and whatnot. Um, so they just went on CNN and BBC to warn the world that AI might be approaching a point where it can improve itself without any humans in the loop. And their co-founder said the industry is actually currently like they don't have a brake pedal. So AI has a brake pedal. Well, they don't have a brake pedal, and it's evolving a little fast, too fast is what they're saying. And I think it's worth taking seriously. I also think that the fact it's coming from an AI company is the most important part of the story. Okay, so the facts first. Anthropic's co-founder, Jack Clark, and Anthropic Institute leader, Marina Favreau, published a blog post warning that the full recursive self-improvement of AI systems that are capable of autonomously developing their own successors is closer than the industry previously assumed. So Clark told CNN's Anderson Cooper, quote, "When I look down the car we're driving, all I have is a gas pedal. I don't have a brake pedal," end quote. And Clark told the BBC that 80% of Anthropic's coding work is already being done by Claude itself, and that reaching that 100% AI written code is possible within 2 years. Anthropic called for a worldwide slowdown in cutting edge AI development, saying it would be, quote, likely a good thing, but acknowledged that if one company stopped, rivals would simply just race ahead. So the warning comes as Anthropic has filed for an IPO, or an initial public offering, that could raise tens of billions of dollars, and that's all money that would accelerate the very development they're warning about. Anthropic said it plans to bring together government officials and scientists and advocacy groups and competing AI firms to figure out how a coordinated slowdown mechanism could actually work. And the whole that little detail about the initial public offering is worth to sit with, because it kind of, just they say everyone needs to slow down with AI development, but an IPO would kind of help them, especially for nearly tens of billions, right? That could give them a lot of money to actually advance, their own work. I mean, that's good. So the message is a little alarming. The people that build the most powerful AI in the world are saying they don't have a way to stop it if they need to. And that's not a fringe concern from a protester outside a conference. That's the co-founder of a leading AI lab on primetime television. The recursive self-improvement concept is the key thing to understand here. It's not about robots, it's about AI that can actually make the next version of AI that's faster and smarter with no humans involved. At that point, the question is about who's in control, and that gets pretty complicated. And this IPO tension is real and worth naming, to be honest. Anthropic is simultaneously warning about the world about a runaway AI and raising billions to build more of it. And it's not necessarily hypocrisy. They'd argue a safety-focused lab about being at the frontier is better than ceding the grounds to labs that don't really care about safety. But it's a tension like you guys deserve to know about. And for you guys specifically, AI is changing how you work and how you create and what job looks like. It's not really a future problem, but Clark is saying the inflection point is close. And the other side of this story or argument, I suppose, is many AI researchers think the recursive self-improvement risk is overstated, and that there are natural ceilings to how much AI can self-improve without human design infrastructure to support it. And the potential upsides are real. Self-improving AI could accelerate breakthroughs through science, healthcare, and other fields. Not every warning about AI is a reason to stop building it. The call for a global pause faces a real practical problem, and Anthropic itself acknowledged it. If only one company stops, the rivals will race ahead, and without enforcement, a pause is just a press release. So, I mean, do you think that we should slow down AI development, and do you trust the companies building it to be the ones to make that call? So the people the people building the gas pedals are now asking for a brake pedal. So the question is really whether anyone's going to actually build one or if we just keep driving. And then some questions to ask and to think about before we get off this episode here. So, number one, a federal judge ruled that a presidential board can't rename a congressional memorial. Does that ruling reassure you that institutional limits still hold, or does it feel like too little too late? Another good question is that Karen Reed spent 3.5 years fighting a prosecution that a jury ultimately rejected. Should a winning criminal case automatically give someone the right to sue the cost of fighting it, and if so, where's the line? Another question. Anthropic is warning that AI might soon be able to improve itself without human input, while also filing for an IPO to raise billions to build more AI. So, do you think that's a contradiction, or does it make sense for a safety-focused company to stay on the frontier? So, of the three stories today, the Kennedy Center, Karen Reed, or the AI warning, which one do you guys think is going to matter the most in 5 years? And that's a very important question to ask. And that's just about all we have time for today. It was a pretty good show, I like to think. I think we asked some pretty interesting questions, and these are three very interesting stories from the last few days. And yeah, I mean, these are a lot of very interesting questions. I personally, I'm all for AI, right? I think it's very cool. It's all really impressive work that they're doing, um, building things of this scale and this grandeur, right? And I'm all about progress. So we love progress, especially in areas that can genuinely improve certain industries or really just optimize everything. So that Anthropic story, I think, is one of the most important stories because progress is good, but you don't want to move too fast. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew, right? So yeah, thanks to you everyone for coming into the stream today and watching this episode of the Real Iraheta Show. And we'll be back here on Sunday at 4 o'clock, back on the Real Iraheta Show. And we'll have a bit of a discussion, and then we'll get into some entertainment, into some fun stuff. We'll see what that looks like. So, yep, thank you everyone for coming in today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday. And yeah, this is the American Streaming Channel. The Real Iraheta Show is possible with ASC News. So make sure you subscribe and make sure you give us a follow on Instagram, ASC News Official. We are one of the finest digital news organizations ever, if not the finest digital news organization ever. So if you want to be part of this fantastic movement of taking back news and bringing back good old-fashioned journalism, give us a follow. You'll love it. I promise. So thank you for coming in, and yeah, have a good Friday.